Influences of NLP. I've already talked about some assumptions that arise in neuro-linguistic programming, right? Oh, people, these assumptions, they were never truly published. When we talk about the assumptions of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, they were ideas that were around behind the authors who were studied in the study group. When you understand that NLP comes from a study group, everything starts to make more sense. This amount of bibliographic references that do not fit and do not communicate, which is what happens in a study group. We coordinated at the college a study group, and from time to time we would include a bunch of authors who contradicted each other. It's normal because it wasn't really a specific line of research. If you take a line from specific research, you will tend to have what? Only references that confirm that. This brings more richness to the practice of NLP. The idea is that if someone does it, everyone can do. This will come in the NLP of the idea of modeling, this formation. It is learning from observation, which was something that happened in the target group. The idea that the map is not the territory. This idea will appear in a book called Science and Sanity by a guy named Alfred Korzybski. In fact, he was one of the first authors to use the term neurolinguistics. He will talk about how we create mental representations regarding the world around us. Then, one thing that happened was the following: the idea that the map is not the territory, although it does not arise in humanistic psychology. It arrives in NLP according to humanistic psychology. So, I will explain what it is. Humanistic psychology, for everyone to understand and clarify this idea. Until the middle of the century, in the 20th century, psychology was synonymous with psychopathology. Psychology was seen as illness, the same with medicine. The idea of health medicine is a very recent thing. It didn't exist before. In our culture, even today we have this idea that psychology is illness, it is psychopathology, and that medicine is also illness. You say to your friend, I went to a cardiologist, what happened? Is everything okay with you? Is everything all right? No one says, it's great that you are taking care of yourself. The idea of prophylaxis, this idea of medicine, of health, of well-being, this is too recent. It didn't exist. People, what was medicine to solve? The problem, and the entire area of health starts with the problem. No one starts in well-being. No one starts in well-being. And then Abraham Maslow was a guy who changed the field of health as a whole forever. He was a psychoanalyst. He hated behavioral psychology, but he loved psychoanalysis. He just said the following: psychoanalysis and psychology as a whole are just one side of the coin. The human being has aspects that psychology does not care about. Who will study solidarity? By whom? Engineering? Altruism. Altruism only exists in humans. We have mutualism, commensalism, and the relationships we learned in school among animals, but it is not altruism. There is selection by kinship. There is the selfish gene where the mother, an animal, a dog, I don't know what kind of animal, throws itself at the predator so the child can escape. This is selection by kinship. But true altruism, just like us, there is no love like ours. It doesn't exist. And Maslow started to talk about something very certain. When is psychology going to start debating these topics that are part of being human, not of other animals? And when will it stop being about illness? Psychology was synonymous with illness, and Abraham Maslow began to talk about purpose, about the need for self-actualization. Who has heard of this? Of positive psychology? Who has heard of it? The seed of positive psychology is Abraham Maslow, he who made this business at the beginning. And then there was a question that he always asked his students, which I liked. I always ask this question in my psychology classes. Who has ever been? My student has seen this question before. Why are you here today? If you think about all the small actions you took to settle down where you are sitting today, which of them did you genuinely choose? How much did you choose? This idea of let's live a life that is authentic, a life that is true, a life that I do not live the life of another person. It is Abraham Maslow who asked this to his students. I loved asking this to my students at the law school of UFMG. I loved it. It was one of the most difficult entrance exams, one of the challenging entrance exams. Difficulties in Brazil, the law school of UFMG is level 6 of the MEC. During the recording of this video, it was level 6 in postgraduate studies, a high level of students and everything else. Only boys who have always received good grades, the ones who got the best grades in school were there, and I said, the greatest jurists of the state will be there. Ministers will be leaving this room. Judges, lawyers will be leaving this room. The biggest names of Brazilian law will leave this room. But I ask you, if on this journey to become one of the greatest jurists of the state of Minas Gerais, Brazil, was it you who made this choice, or was it someone else? Did someone make that choice for you? How many of the actions you took to get into this entrance exam, to enter this room, how many of those hours of study were genuinely chosen by you? All. Each semester I would lose about 3 students. It was really sad. There was a girl who shouted, I hate this place, I want to do biology. She got up and left. Then the others started to cry. It's a really crazy thing, right? We see a generation focused on being productive, but that has never talked about itself. No one has ever asked, how are you? Do you want this business? No, they don't have space for that. No, they really don't have space. A student told me, Alberto, I came to say I dropped out of college because of you. I have nothing to do with that. I have nothing to do with that, man. I have no responsibility at all for this. There is so much demand for these questions that Abraham Maslow brought, and my classes were full. The classes were all provocative. Teaching psychology and philosophy is way too easy. Let's discuss why we are here. Why do we suffer? These are questions that matter. Everyone. There was a guy who taught philosophy, and what did the students? What were they doing? I taught one class, he taught another class, we would switch and he would teach the PowerPoint. In my room, there was a day when there were about 70 people and only 40 were enrolled. 70 people. Then the students started bringing chairs, and the other guy's room became empty. Then the guy came, talk to me. Professor, you have to stop your students from skipping my class to watch yours. What were they doing? The students who had the second period with me preferred, my class is in the first period for them to leave. Your class is bad, man. No one can stand these PowerPoint classes. Students want to talk, interact. They make you sleepy. Can you imagine? The class was from 9 p.m. to 10:40 p.m. Oh man, PowerPoint. No one can handle that, right? In the last period, no one is going to stay at all. They would watch my class and then leave. Why did they attend my class? Because we brought the questions that Maslow raised. And then Maslow brought something that became famous even in coaching, which is the hierarchy of needs. Who brought this idea of hierarchy? It was Maslow who addressed needs. He is the one who invented this. Who has heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? There was never a pyramid. It was never a pyramid. It was invented later. They made something similar with Kelsen in law. They invented the pyramid. The pyramid never existed. Abraham Maslow created the hierarchy of needs. However, someone in some book for didactic reasons drew the pyramid. Now it is, of course, the idea of the pyramid is the same idea that Abraham Maslow had. This idea, in fact, is in a rock band from Brazil that said the following: we don't just want food, we want food, fun, and art. Titans Band. Maslow inspired the assumptions of neuro-linguistic programming, but we have to understand, following about the assumptions of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, it is clear that they are most of the time lies. For example, if someone does it, anyone is capable of doing it. Of course, that is a lie, but we, not just as therapists, but as human beings, we know that sincere lies interest me, they interest me. The singer Cazuza used to say that the point is this: the assumptions of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, in general, are necessary lies for us to be our best version of ourselves. Of course, I will never be Baryshnikov or be Carlinhos from Jesus Dancing, but I can go to the Venus podcast party only with selected people, only with the elite of society, with my wife, and dance a samba de gafieira and impress everyone around me. It's in my stories. In other words, this example of dancing is interesting to me because it's clear that I have problems. I have several problems with motor coordination. I am not a person who was born to dance, but I can manage to be the best version of myself possible while dancing. Because I have been training for this for years, and this is what we have in the idea of the assumptions of neuro-linguistic programming, humanistic psychology, the idea that I can be better. In other words, human nature is good. If I do not believe that human is good, I become paralyzed. I have nothing to do. This idea of the noble savage, including in his book, The Blank Slate, Steven Pinker comments, of course, that the nature is a myth. Human beings are good. But the moment I believe that we all have the potential to self-actualize, that human nature is good, that people made the decisions that were more available to them. In fact, there are some of these assumptions that seem ridiculous, but when we understand Maslow, it makes a lot of sense. Maslow will say the following: human nature. It is good, but it is fragile. The environment, the people around us make us corrupt this nature, and we will take the decisions according to the number of decisions we have available. And I think it is essential to understand Abraham Maslow because in neuro-linguistic programming courses, the instructors present these assumptions like rules. Has anyone ever seen this? Is this a list of rules? I think that's really bad. We need to understand the context in which this is emerging. This is emerging because psychology began to worry. Dude, but is that all there is? Don't we have other aspirations that are not the psychoanalytic drives? Don't we have issues that go beyond conditioning? From behaviorism? From behavior analysis? These are questions that will arise in humanism.